Hello? Cool. Okay, everyone, so final talk. If I can just keep your attention a little bit longer. I'm fucking tired. And like a little bit drunk, but I don't know if I'm drunk enough. But we'll try. Okay. I've got this, which is infused with botanicals. So I guess it's kind of healthy, right? But it's also got rum in it, so thank you. So, I've introduced myself already. I'm going to be talking about empathy and its relationship to stress and music. So wait, is this is me? Is this the right way? Hi, this is me. I'm Bonnie. I'm a second year PhD student at Max Planck Institute for Human and Cognitive and Brain Sciences. And I'm in the research group, Social Stress and Family Health. Actually, this picture was taken at the first science communication night I ever did. Right here, they projected loads of graphs behind me, random graphs and charts and I don't know, science things. And I had to spontaneously come up with a scientific narrative. And I literally just talked about how great oat milk cappuccinos are for 5 minutes. Every graph that came up, I was like, this is a graph showing that oat milk cappuccinos are fucking great. So if I get nervous or if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to talk about oat milk cappuccinos. So my research group, we study something called psychosocial stress. So how psychological factors in our environment can trigger our physiological stress response. And I'm particularly interested in meditation, so how this reduces stress, empathy, what empathy is, what it means to have empathy, and I also look at sex hormones, how they modulate empathy, and whether this might have a potential effect on gender. So I'm an empathy researcher, and I research psychosocial stress, but this is a night about music, so why is this important? Well, it's important because empathizing and taking on the emotions of others seems to be something which is really important in music and important in linking music and emotion. I'm sure you all have experiences anecdotally that music can really evoke powerful emotions. And it's true because it's been found that when we listen to music, it evokes emotions more than 50% of the time. So in order to try and explain how empathy and music are related, I'm first going to give a short overview of empathy, then I'm going to talk about empathic stress, so what we do in our lab, and then I'm going to try and link these two together in the relationship between music and empathy. I'm going to show you a couple of memes, but first you need to know what an empath is. So an empath is basically this fake thing that people get on a morally superior high ground and think they have more empathy than everyone else and then won't shut up about it. I'm an empath. Sometimes I can tell how people are feeling simply by deciding how they feel in my mind and instantly believing it. So I'm sure you all know someone like this, and actually it's they will not stop talking about it, which is kind of paradoxical because it's very narcissistic. I'm an empath. Sometimes I can tell how people are feeling simply by observing their facial expressions, tone of voice, and how they tell me they're feeling. And I mean, the joke here is that we all have empathy, and we all have empathy because it's evolutionary productive. If we're looking at someone and we're having empathy for them and they're in a dangerous situation, we need to know that because that situation might be dangerous to us. Similarly, caregivers or parents need to be able to respond to the needs of the child. So they need to be able to empathize and understand what their child is going through in order to be able to help them effectively. So really, empathy can be described as a shared state of emotion of one individual observing another. If you want to start a fight, I suggest you put a bunch of empathy researchers into a room and try and get them to come up with a common theme of empathy. It's really hard. There's so many different aspects of it. I'm going to talk about 3 today, but this is by no means the whole picture. So first, roughly, empathy can be divided into 2 components. The first is the affective component. So the affective component is the emotional sharing of another person's state. So when I personally see Queen Elizabeth smile, it makes me feel really fucking happy. take on that emotion. I fucking love Queen Liz, even though she's probably a racist and probably the reason why our beloved Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have had to flee Brexit Britain. But that I digress. The Queen is happy. It makes me happy. That's effective empathy. The second part of empathy is the cognitive part. So understanding theoretically what someone else is going through. So as you can see, I don't know if you can read this, but the father is saying to the child on the phone, "What are you doing, Denzel?" Denzel's like playing with this. Denzel's a fucking idiot because he can't see that his dad doesn't know what he's playing with. So it's really important that we have an understanding of why someone is feeling a certain way in order to truly empathize. And biologically, the reason, or one of the ways that we think this happens, is through brain mirroring. So this is really cool. When we're empathizing with someone, we highlight some of the same brain areas which are involved as if we were in the same thing that person was in. I don't know if I explained that, but maybe you can understand by this idea that when I watch someone who's experiencing pain, I highlight the same areas of my brain which are involved in pain, even though I'm not experiencing that pain directly myself. So this is a really amazing mechanism by which empathy is thought to occur. And one of the reasons why empathy can be so powerful is through this thing that we study in our lab called empathic stress. So one of the best ways in stress research to induce stress is something called the Trier social stress test. So this guy who's faced towards like the panel of people, he has to give like a mock job interview speech, and then he has to do 2043 and take away 17 like a bunch of times. And it has like cameras, there's lights, and he's told that these are like behavioral analysts, and the behavioral analysts are just me and my colleagues. We're just trying to do research, but we have to like keep a straight face. We have to like be really unforgiving. Like sometimes I tell them like they've got the thing wrong, even though they haven't. Just like stress them out more. And if you take their self-reported stress, if you take their cortisol, the heart rate, and some other measures, it reliably induces stress. Now, what is really interesting is that if you put someone behind a one-way mirror and they just observe this thing, they observe this person going through this very stressful situation, and you take their cortisol and their heart rate and their self-reported stress, it actually goes up as well. So this is something which is called empathic stress, and it really shows how powerful our empathy can be, to the point that when we see someone stressed, we literally feel some of that stress ourselves on a physiological as well as self-reported level. And so this night is about music. So what's interesting, I guess, in terms of this is that what this person is giving is essentially a performance. He's having to perform in front of these people. So this has only really been studied in the lab, but anecdotally, I guess anecdotally, the idea that we could become stressed when we watch someone perform or someone do music, like maybe we could take on some of that stress ourselves. Like it's an interesting thing to think about. There's no research on it yet, but I mean, anecdotally, maybe we could find something. But what we do know is that empathy does mediate a wider sort of emotion through music, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. So we're going to go back to these three concepts of affective, cognitive, and brain mirroring. So first, we're going to talk about this affective. Queen Liz, she's happy, it makes me happy. That's affective empathy. And in terms of music, this is thought of in terms of sharing the emotion between the music and the listener. So one study which looked at this was, so what they did is they did this thing called facial electromyography, which is when they measure the muscles in your face, and they looked at the zygomaticus major. I don't know if I'm saying that right. This isn't something I studied, so I hope I'm saying it right. Which is this muscle here, which, as you can probably guess, is involved in the smile response. And then they got people to listen to happy versus sad music. So happy is this like straight line, and sad is this like dotted line. And this y-axis is the change in the muscle activity, and then it's over time. So, excuse me. As you can see, the change in this muscle activity is much more pronounced when they're listening to happy music compared to when they're listening to sad music. And this wasn't like an active response. This is something they're not really aware of this response, but it is happening. So this kind of shows that we emotionally match to the music that we're listening to, even though we're not even aware of it. And this also happened on the level of like temperature change and heart rate. This was in line with what we see in the literature, that like your heart rate should go up when you're listening to happy music, which it did, and the temperature should go up a little bit more as well when listening to happy music, and it did. So I guess this just shows that we are sharing the emotion of the musician that the musician has set out to create, which is really cool. The second thing we're going to talk about is cognitive empathy again. So this is more empathizing with the experiences of the musician. So in this, I'm really sorry, these things have come up before. I didn't do that right. Okay, so first, what they did was they got a string quartet to play like a concert, and they videoed it. And then the string quartet had to watch these videos back and then rate at different time points throughout their like set how expressive they were or how emotional they were. And this is what we see here. And so don't worry about what all the different lines mean. They're just like different measures of what this expressiveness was. But this y-axis is showing how they change in expressiveness, and then it's over time on the x-axis. So as we can see, you get you get much more pronounced expressiveness throughout this excerpt they're playing. And then what they did is they got participants to watch these videos and rate those same to rate at the same times like how expressive they were. And this is what we see. So it's not completely correlated, but we do see there's a lot of correlation there. Now, what's really interesting is that when participants were measured on their empathy, it was found that those who had high empathy were much more accurate at depicting what the musicians had it rated as expressive. So this kind of shows that participants who have higher empathy may be better at putting themselves into the shoes of the musician and are particularly good with empathizing with them and more able to emotionally resonate with the music. Finally, we're going to talk about brain mirroring. So again, this idea that that like when someone else is in pain, I highlight the same areas of my brain involved in pain. So one way in which this could be done in music is that we could watch someone play music, and perhaps we could highlight motor areas. So motor areas is involved in movement. So perhaps when we could highlight the same areas of the brain involved in like the fingering needed to play the piano or the vocal track to sing a song. And that's what they've done in this study. So they got participants to listen to emotional music, and this is what happened when they listened to pleasant music. Now, I'm sure you can all understand what this means. It's what we see here is this is highlighting something called the Hershey's gyrus. So this is all based in the temporal cortex of your brain. So this is on the side of your brain, and this is the part of the brain which is generally involved in like sound activation, sound production. It's basically like it does a lot of other things as well, but it's basically like the sound area of the brain. So this was really like when people listen to music, we expect this to be highlighted. Now, what was interesting is that these two areas were highlighted as well. So this is the Rolandic operculum and the insula, and the Rolandic operculum is involved in, it's got a link to the vocal tract, and we would normally expect to see its activation when someone is talking or singing. But the participants weren't talking or singing. They were actively told not to talk or sing while their brains are being scanned. And so this could show that perhaps, this insula as well is involved in planning those activations. So what we could be seeing is like a mirroring of this a mirroring of what they're expecting from the music, a mirroring of like the vocal tract activation as if they were to sing themselves. So one of the ways we could potentially be feeling emotion when we listen to music is because our brain is almost planning to sing the very songs that we're hearing. So this is like another approach of how empathy is involved. So we're at the summary already. So I did actually change this. I changed, like, there was like a thing at the top which just said empaths don't exist in like capitals, but that's not there anymore. Empathy is a state of shared emotion. There's potential to take on the stress of others through a process known as empathic stress, and music-induced emotion is like to be modified through this, like the Queen. The Queen is happy, I'm happy. That's effective empathy. A theoretical understanding and this brain mirroring. He should have been king. So I'm on Instagram. Like, my Instagram it's about neuroscience, infographics. But I also used to work at the Vagina Museum, and so I've got like a lot of like vagina stuff. So if a vagina neuroscience crossover is what you're looking for, then please follow me. And yeah, maybe one day I'll sell you some teas to make your brain bigger. Yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. I knew I wouldn't be able to get through the whole night without like trolling myself. So, but I'm glad I made it with this meme. Yeah. Any?
Hello. Thank you for the wonderful talk. So empaths don't exist. In the string quartet study, though, you were comparing, like, obviously there's some variation in individual capacity for empathy because some people had higher empathy than others, and you're looking at that. How do you quantify empathy and how do you measure it?
Thank you for your lovely question. How do you so yeah, this is the thing about like trying to put a bunch of empathy researchers in a room, and it's really so some people are like, you need to be aware of the empathy while you're going through it. Some people think that you don't need to be aware of it, and it's just the sharing of this emotion. And there's a few different ways that you measure it. A lot of the time at the moment it's through self-report, but you can also do this thing called the reading the mind and the eyes, which is by this guy called Simon Baron Cohen, who's Sacha Baron Cohen's like cousin, and actually he's a complete twat. Like, he also has this thing about like this whole like empathizing, systemizing brain, and that like that men and women have to like. I hate him. Sorry. I'm writing a paper right now, and like I'm just like ripping into him. Yeah, so you can do this reading, but the reading the mind and the eyes in the mind, whatever this thing is called, is not so bad. It's like you have to look at the eyes and read like exactly what emotion it is. So that's quite a good way. There's also ways where you you describe the situation, or you show like a little video, and then you have to ask what that person is gonna do or they're gonna like think. So these are the main ways that we explore empathy. And actually, like in terms of empaths, there is. Where is it? That Michael Banassi and colleagues in Goldsmith University. They're doing some work on this thing called like mirror touch synesthesia. Does everyone know what synesthesia is? Yeah. Synesthesia is basically like a crossing over of the senses. So the most common way we see it is you might look at letters and you see them as a different color. But there's lots of different variations of this. So you have like sound. People like taste different sounds. People hear color and stuff like that. But what they found is this very specific thing called mirror touch synesthesia. So when you see someone being touched, you feel that touch yourself. And these people are extremely empathetic. And that's the only study which has hinted at this idea of an empath, and it's literally feeling pain and literally feeling touch. That's the only way you can be an empath. So if you're trying to do that, you can. Any other questions?
Hello, Bonnie.
Hey, Rowan.
You said how you gave an example of how when Queen Elizabeth is happy, it makes you happy. But for me personally, I'm really interested in from that. Who is your favourite member of the British royal family?
got to be Meghan Markle. I love the underdog. Love it. Any other questions? I don't actually like I don't agree with the royal family. I just think it's funny to be a Brit and like pretend to be really into it. But by doing that, I've accidentally, like, ironically, really got into the royal family. Okay, I guess if anyone else has any questions, you can just come and find me later. Thank you.